rebuilding confidence, and harmonizing with nature. With over 4 decades of changing lives, your self-discovery archaeologist, get ready to be the best of you with your host, Beverly Zymet.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Beverly Zymet Show, where being that best you has just gotten easier. And my guest today is going to help with that. Her name is Margaret Steffie, and she's calling in from New York. Welcome to the show, Margaret.
Thank you for having me.
So, how are things up there in the wild east of New York, I guess, right?
I am mid-New York, so central New York, so I'm 5 hours from the city, so I don't really have any of the worries or problems that they're having. I am very much in a rural area, so
Okay.
it's a little different.
Yeah, I was up there last fall. A friend of mine and I, we took off on a little had a little adventure, jumped in an RV, and we just went to see all the colors. So we hit all of that northeast states, every single one of them. It was a blast. We had a good time.
Yeah, it's lovely. I'm very fortunate. I work at a winery on the weekends.
Oh, nice.
And they have, right from the tasting room where I'm at, I can see both the vineyard and then the lake beyond it. And I'm just like, this is the best work view I've ever had.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. So do you get a lot of snow up in your neck of the woods too then, in the wintertime probably?
For the most part, it can be hit or miss, but it gets cold pretty early and stays cold pretty late. So September through May can be questionable for sure.
Yeah. I grew up in the Midwest, and let's say I don't miss it. I don't miss the cold winters and the snow, and I definitely don't miss all the humidity and the heat in the summertime. So, yeah.
Definitely.
So, Margaret, what is it that you do? You had mentioned that you had a show or have a show,
Yes.
and so what is your show all about, and what is Margaret all about? Let our audience know.
Yeah. So I have a podcast.
Okay.
And it's Margaret's Healthy Hour, where it's 5 o'clock somewhere and always time to improve your health.
Oh, I thought 5 o'clock somewhere meant something else, right?
Most of the time it does. So it's a show. I am very open to letting just about anyone on who can in some way help you, give advice to improve your health, improve time management, anything, honestly, that can overall make you a better you. So I've had mindset coaches. I've had people interested in essential oils. Who else? I've had, you name it, health coaches.
Right. Yeah, I've had
personal trainers and group fitness instructors on, I think, this fall.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. My show's kind of open to that too, because it's, being that best you, that, and each day getting better and better, it's not just one thing. It works in relationships, it works in finances, it works in your mental state, your emotional state, your spiritual state, So, and when you say health, too, it's more than just the food that you take or the nutrition that you take. Your mindset is really a big part. My belief is, anyway, that, if your mind isn't in the right space and your thoughts aren't in the right space, it doesn't matter what you put in here, food-wise and nutritional-wise. If your mind is off in this abyss of darkness, right, and negativity, your body responds to that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and I even have brought people on who've just been through hard times or been through huge transformations that then can talk about what they learned in that journey. So I recently interviewed and had her on the show, someone who left the ultra-Orthodox Hasidic community in Brooklyn, and her transformation out of that, and how she kept herself together and is still dealing with the repercussions of it today.
Yeah, I get that. I grew up in a very strict Catholic background, right? And I was second oldest of 11. We grew up on a farm, And now we're talking a long time ago, like a really long time ago, because I was I was born in '49. That was a long time ago.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, and so, you know, you grew up with the thought of, you know, you get married, you have kids, and then you do it all over again, and they do it all over again, or you either go to the priesthood or you go to the nunnery, right? I mean, that was pretty much it. And you know, I went to a parochial school, so I was in church every day of my life during school time. You know, so you have that really, you know, harsh, and at times it was very harsh. You know that, I don't know, brimstone and beating in, and you know, brainwashing sometimes. You know, and my journey started when I had lost my identity. And that happened in '74. It came to a peak, and it was like when I did get married, and I had 3 kids. You know, just bing, bing, bing. You know, and I was 21 when I had my first child. I was 22 when I had my second. I was 23 when I had my third. And it's like, wait a minute, I'm not following in my mother's footsteps. This is not my life, right? Oh my gosh! And I was a rebel from the beginning. You know. And during that marriage time is where I really lost my identity. And I think there's a lot of people that can relate with that, you know, because all of a sudden it's almost like you become a possession, you know, and back there in the Midwest and in that span, you know, it kind of was thought of that, you know, and you were made reference to, you know, being married to somebody or so-and-so's mom or whatever it is, and you didn't have a name. And it's like, this is not my life. This was not my dreams as a kid. I'm not staying in this. And I did find my way out of it. And I left the Midwest and I went to Denver, Colorado. And you talk about going from the country to the city.
Yeah.
Wow. But you know, and that's how my journey started, but it was finding my own identity. So I can relate to the woman that you were just saying, because the repercussions, I mean, I got a divorce, and the whole enchilada, and it was like, oh my God, you know, Beverly's lost it. She's gone off her rocker, you know, maybe she needs to be committed. I mean, it was crazy. And it took quite a few years before even my parents, my dad especially, my mom, not so much, but my dad, you know, had a really rough time. I was like, wow. But when he saw how I advanced, you know, and how my life progressed, you know, being in Denver, starting my own business and doing stuff, you know, it started to shift. But it, you know, again, when you're in something like that, and, you know, and that's minor. You know, I look at these women who have been stuck in abusive relationships that have just, you know, I mean, and it happens so subtle. It's not like all of a sudden, you know, you were there and boom, it happened. It's little by little by little by little, to the point, you know, it just kind of wears you down.
Exactly.
Right. And then that getting out of, and I've, you know, really been blessed with a lot of beautiful souls that have come on here and shared their stories with that and how they got out and what they did. And you're seeing so much of that in the news now. And I think where community has failed was once they did get out of a situation. You know, it's like, okay, now here you are, you're free, go do what you want to do. Mm-hmm. They don't know what to do because they've lost that ability and that know-how and the fears, you know, they're lost. And to be able to give that hand up and that support as you move through and continue to get on your feet, you know, and I'm seeing right now so many groups that are beginning to give that assistance. So it's there for any of our listeners that feel that they're in that same boat. It's there. Reach out, you know, and know who you're reaching out to. Because you know the ones that are going to say, oh, it's not that bad, you know, maybe you should rethink it. And, you know, they're not sleeping in your bed, they're not walking in your shoes. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So reach out to someone who has been there, reach out to organizations, reach out to strangers. And it's sad that a stranger will give you more assistance than someone that you know. But again, you don't know exactly where they are, and maybe
Exactly.
they're trying to break free and don't have what it takes to do it, so they want to have somebody back in that same situation, right?
Definitely. Yeah, there's just so much to that. And I mean, I can completely relate to you. I went to parochial school through fourth grade, and then we moved up here, and it wasn't an option anymore. This area is so small, I would have had to go an hour to get to a private school.
Right.
So it just was, and the public schools were so small, it wasn't, my parents weren't concerned. Back where we used to live, you were in a class of 1,000 students. So a lot bigger of a community, a lot bigger school. And they didn't want us in that. They wanted a more tailored education. Where here,
Right.
public was still relatively tailored. But also having those Catholic friends with 5, 6, or more siblings.
Oh
not-
man, where I grew up, it was like if you had less than 8 kids, there must have been something going on. Something was wrong, you know. But I'm not kidding you. I mean, I thought we had a big family with 11, but there were a lot of them that had 15, 18, children. But that's, it's just the way it was. That was the life, and
Yeah.
a lot of times, because you were on the farm, and it took a lot of people. It
Yeah.
was a team, to keep that farm work going and everything. So, but I am really blessed. I feel I do not have any qualms against being,
Yeah.
From my background growing up on the farm and having that base, because it was really solid and it was really sound.
Definitely.
And with that many, kids, we're still very, very close. We're a very close-knit family. So we got lots of nieces and nephews and grandnieces and nephews and grandkids and great-grandkids and just extended family. I mean, we're huge, so we have a family reunion, like every year we try to get together somewhere, and most of us make it. But it's just, when we get together, it's a big party, shall we say, right?
Definitely.
So, but I get where you're coming from when you say, with the education and stuff. I mean, I had like 15 kids in my class. I think some of the highest classes were maybe 20 kids. And then there was so small, a lot of small communities, that what they did is they came together with 5 communities and built a big high school. And and it took, out of 5 different arenas, I still only had 103 in my high school class, right? So we're talking small arenas here, right?
Yeah. I graduated in a class of 82 students.
So, and there's a lot to be said about that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So when you were growing up, what were some of your dreams? Where did you see yourself going, and have you gotten there, or did things just kind of shift and you found a different pathway?
It's a bit of both. So I always envisioned myself helping others. And when you're little and dreaming, there were times when I was like, oh, maybe I'll be a surgeon or something, because you see it on TV and you're like, oh, that's cool.
Right.
So those things definitely came through my mind at points in time. And for me, I actually struggled, and still sometimes do struggle, to figure out what my dreams truly are. Very early on, completely out of love, but my parents very much wanted me to have a career that would support me.
Right.
Which, nothing wrong with that, but kind of started to push one career. And so I lost my own ability to figure out what my passion was, and kind of adopted the passion that they thought I should be pursuing as my own. And for me, don't get me wrong, it was a career that had promise. I was interested in the subject matter, but when it came down to actually being part of that career, because I got partway through my degree for it, I was not as in love with it as I realized.
Right.
It was very much a looks good on paper, and then I thought I could pursue and muster my way through it, and in the end, it was not the scope of practice and what people. It was a pharmacy degree, so working as a doctor of pharmacy in a pharmacy or researching or who knows what.
Right.
For me, it was not where I wanted to be. I struggled working in a pharmacy for the fact that I felt you could help the clients so much more than what they were getting.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. That's sometimes can be a hard call to make. But there are so many of our listeners out here, I really feel, that can actually relate to what you're saying. How many of us are in a business that we don't love? We're there because there's a paycheck at the end of the week.
Exactly.
We live our lives the way other people think we should live it. And again, that goes back into that identity, right? Mm-hmm. So when you look at where you were headed and where you thought, well, maybe they know best because they're mom and dad, right? And so you give them the benefit of the doubt, but you keep going and going and going, but there's something inside of you that says, this ain't working. I can remember, being a child, I always wanted to be like a psychologist or psychiatrist or something like this, right? But I'm just so blessed that Spirit kept me away from that, and because I was psychic. I didn't know that word back then, but very intuitive as a child. And it was my way of getting even, because I was teased a lot and picked on because I was small. And so I kind of was in a fight all my life. But it kept that intuition alive for me until I found out what it was, And then it was like, oh my gosh, because after I moved to Denver, there were people, around, and things were starting to open up a little, especially in the city, not so much in the country. But in the city, and I took a course called Silva Mind Control. And that just answered so much throughout my childhood that I didn't have answers for. It was amazing. And that is what made my journey soar to the direction that I'm in, and working in the emotional field and working with clearing because, and again, like you're saying the pharmacy, it's like, wow, there's just so much more to it that drugs aren't always the answer.
Exactly.
And so working in the field with the emotional clearing and healings and stuff that I do, because I worked through a lot of my own struggles with that, I developed techniques over the years. Yeah. Where when you go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist, a lot of times, you come in, you regurgitate, and then they give it to you in a silver platter and say, here, go home and eat it, and then share it again the next time you come back and see if it got better. Right, and then they give you, different drugs to kind of, get your anxieties down or whatever, and then they create other problems, So I'm like, oh, thank goodness I didn't have to go that way. Now, I'm not saying that therapy isn't good, but again, it's who your therapist is and the direction that you want to go and where your workings are, and finding that self. That's the key. So, Margaret, when you started realizing that you just couldn't continue where you were headed because the inner conflict, and I think this is what our listeners need to really begin to recognize is, where is that inner conflict? So you had that inner conflict and you said, okay, I'm done. What was the shift to go from that to where you are today? Because obviously you're finding your passion and your direction and a way to go. So share with the listeners what exactly that looks like, how you made that transition, and again, you probably had repercussions from those around you that thought, oh, you were crazy leaving such a lucrative field, right?
Yeah, it was not an easy transition for sure. And for me, it was very much, I'm the person who, if I commit to something, I'm going to follow through. And that was the first time in my life I have never finished a major task.
Right.
So, and being very much a perfectionist, it was a struggle for the fact that my family, they support me, and were supportive, but they also were like, you're at such a good school. You're halfway through. And I had those inner critics coming up as well. It was a 6-year doctorate program. So getting 2.5 years into it and realizing when we were really hitting that clinical side,
right,
that it was not for me. I was like, well, I'm halfway through. Do I finish because then I'm coming out with a doctorate and have the ability to go do so much just using that?
Right.
Or do I start doing what I'm being told to do now instead of waiting? And that's really that, along with the fact that that semester, because I was so not aligned with the path, started taking online courses and became a certified health coach that same semester, and was spending more time honestly working on that stuff that my grades started to slip.
Right.
Not condoning that choice for anyone, but I could clearly see where I was being pulled. And it was not towards that pharmacy side. I was struggling. Even though I was trying hard, I would have had to repeat a semester. And I was like, this is a sign. This is a sign that this is not where I'm supposed to be. And yeah, it became very clear as the semester continued, as I was going into finals, and just some of the surrounding actions and occurrences that happened at that time. I took another fitness training. I took my first fitness training that Thanksgiving and kind of found a calling that I did not know I had.
Right.
I signed up for it because I enjoyed taking the classes. It was close to home where I'd be over Thanksgiving, and I was completely scared out of my mind to take it. I hate being the center of attention. I don't like to talk in front of people. And this required me to not only use physical activity, but talk in front of people about something I, at that point, was not completely comfortable doing. And now I am 4 more certifications into that niche and completely in love. I mean, I'm missing it now because the gym's not open, so I'm not teaching, but
Right.
it created a passion I didn't know I had.
That's beautiful. You know, and again, I think our listeners can learn from what you just shared. You know, if there is that inner conflict, if you're not on that path to where you want to go, to where you want to be, and it's just that paycheck at the end of the week, maybe you really need to start taking a look at, where do I need to be? Who am I? What is my purpose? Right? And finding that, because the difference is the fulfillment and, you know, the ability to help others. And like you said, finding that passion that you didn't even realize that you had. Right?
Yeah.
And, you know, unfortunate, there's a lot of things going on in the world today that we're not able to follow in and complete. You know, so it's finding other ways to complete that process. And my partner and I are working with is, we worked into the virtual reality world, which is the avatar world, right? Because, you know, again, we were looking to get a group of people together, like your lead generation groups, but we wanted to go global, and we wanted to do it on the virtual reality platform because it was just a different avenue. And I had been looking for a way to teach my online courses and stuff differently because, you know, it was just, I wanted that connectedness.
Yeah.
You know, I really knew nothing about virtual reality. It was like a year and a half ago when I had mentioned it to him, you know, what I was looking for. And when he shared it with me the first time around, it was like, this ain't gonna cut it. You know, I mean, yeah, these little comedy people floating around, jumping all over, you know, flying in space and doing whatever. And I said, no, I need a setting that's like a classroom or an auditorium where I can actually have people come in, you know, and be there, you know, butts in the seats, but not butts in the seats, so to speak, right? Last January, he contacted me. He said, I got your answer. I said, okay. So we got on a Zoom. He took me into the platform, and he shows me this big university. I'm like, okay, keep talking, keep showing, right? And we went into these classrooms, went in the auditoriums. I mean, it was unbelievable. It's like, now this is something I could adapt to. And so we started talking more, and then one thing led to another. You know, it's like, okay, well, what if we did this, and what if we did that? You know, and so we started with that, putting together like a chambers, those lead groups at, you know, monthly meetings, weekly meetings or whatever. So we did that and started getting a lot of people interested. And then it's like, okay, we gotta do more than this. Let's have an event. Let's have a vendor event. Now my partner Robert's like, he's like, I don't know anything about these things. Are you kidding me? And it's like, I do. He was the one that was the builder and could, you know, put these rooms together. I says, you build it, I'll tell you what I want, and then you use creativity and you put it together, and we'll get the people, you know, in the vendor booths. And it's been working pretty good. So we've done 3 so far, and we're looking for more. And we've also are working with other businesses, because we've taken the gaming platform and turned it into business and education. So we have boardrooms, we have classrooms for students, and we've got teachers that are looking at us. It's like, hey, because kids today need that engagement. But one of the key things, Margaret, with the virtual reality, because we are in this social distancing thing, when you're in the avatar world, it brings people back together. Because the mind, again, we talked about the mind, right? Now the mind is saying, wow, there's somebody here. And when you're on the platform, you're talking, just like we're talking, you're talking to that person in that avatar body. And the mind just says, hey, there's a person here. You recognize that voice. And even if you don't recognize the voice, it doesn't matter. There's a human element there. So you can accomplish what you're wanting. So let's just say, okay, here you are. You're a teacher, you know, is it exercising?
I can, yes.
Yeah, okay.
One of my many skills.
Okay. All right, so the things that you're teaching, you're not able to do it because you're not open to a gym. What if, let's just use your imagination. Let's say, what if you had on the platform this beautiful decked out gym, right?
Yeah.
And here's this huge stage. Margaret gets up there on the stage, right? And she's in her little avatar. All of her students are out there, you know, either in an auditorium or they're out there on the front lawn, you know, however you want it decked out. And they can see you on the screen, your physical body, right? Because it's a little hard to make your avatar do probably some of the things you needed to do, you know. So now here you are on screen, and your avatar is there, but everyone is in their own environment, but they're brought together in the visual, and their avatars are there, and they're talking with other students, they're talking with you. Now it's as though they're at the gym, because the mind says that's where you are. And then so Margaret says, all right, first thing I want you to do is, and then you start showing them positions and doing it. Now your business is up and affluent again. And look at what you're doing with people who are confined, and they want that movement. The body needs movement to be healthy. We all know that, right?
Yes.
So that's food for thought. And this is what we're doing with a lot of industries, is giving them an opportunity and a way to do business different on a platform that brings community together and be able to get across what it is that you're doing. Right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been something I've been playing with right now. Is I'm loving what I have to offer, but I'm like, I can do more.
Right.
And or I want to offer more. So it's figuring out how to offer it in the best way without it being super confusing, because as you probably know, like saying you can't do all the things.
Right.
And that's something that gets repeated to me all the time, because I am the person who tries to do all the things.
Well, I'll tell you, it's been an eye opener for me, and I'm like that too. It's like if there's a will, there's a way, and I'm gonna find it. And I'm like you. It's like I'm focused on something, and I'm going down that road until I get a result, right? And sometimes all the steps along the way don't work, but you know, the ones that don't work, you just push them out of the way and find one that does, right? You know, so it's that determination, that consistency. So when you're working in that health arena that you're doing, share with the audience some of the specifics, you know, some of how you align with your clients, you know, from say A to Z, you know, just kind of real quick on how a day in the life of Margaret would look in that avenue of health. Yeah,
so not only am I a fitness or group exercise instructor, but I also health coach. So they're very different avenues. I honestly personally believe in getting your health together before you work out, but it's also, the group fitness has become very much a community to me that I didn't know I had. It combines, I have three big passions, being music, fitness / health, and then like culture and like language. And most of the classes that I'm teaching are through an organization that's international. So I can, if I have a question, I can go out and put it on one of our chat boards, and someone across the world could answer me. And so I feel very connected in both avenues.
Right.
But I love coming into a class And even if I'm tired that day, I know I have to show up for the people who are there, regardless of if I'm coaching or if I'm instructing a class. I have to show up for them. I have to be there.
Right.
And honestly, when I'm teaching a class, I swear I put on a little bit of a different persona. I'm up there. Normally I'm that shy, like, person who just hangs back and watches.
Right.
When you're teaching, I have to be up there. I have to be on my game. They're pushing me to keep going. I'm full of energy because if I'm not, they're not going to be.
Exactly.
And sometimes my classes aren't easy. We're doing a 30-minute high-intensity interval training workout. So you're sweaty, you're tired, you're doing burpees. You're like, when is this going to end? And I have to be there being their cheerleader, getting them through that difficult workout.
You know, and that's something that you have to keep up with too, I'm sure, because if you let it go, then it's almost like starting all over again. You know, so when you look at how many months we've gone through, see, March, April, May, June, July, that's 5 months already. We're coming into month 6. You know, it's like, wow, not a good thing. You know, when you mentioned something that was really key here, you know, where you can reach out globally to people. Which is really awesome, and that's what I really liked about the virtual reality world, that what we're doing, because it is global, and we've got people coming to our events now from, you know, across the pond, across the equator, you know, which is really, really awesome, right? So, oh, we got something going here. Shut this off. So, okay. It'll go away.
It's really cool that way. But also I almost feel, while I wish I was back at the gym, I think I'd be a little more motivated sometimes to do some workouts, keep up with it more. Don't get me wrong, I'm still doing stuff almost every day.
Right.
But especially I decided to start the podcast when everything shut down. Because I was like, now's the time. What better time? And honestly, I've connected with people all over the world.
I know, it's amazing fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
You just meet so many awesome people, and that's one thing that I have to say, that doing this show, I started the show just like almost on the verge of this whole beginning, because my show went live right at the first part of March, right? And, you know, and it was picking up momentum, but the people, that's, I'm at a loss for words, and that doesn't happen very often. But, you know, people like yourself coming on and being able to share, you know, all these really awesome things, it's just almost like miraculous.
Yeah. I actually keep a book here where I write down quotes from shows where people have, like, given such deep nuggets of information, or just something that I'm, and then I also use them in, like, the show promos, but it's one of those that I'm like, that is amazing. And without these experiences, I would not have those little pieces that now I'm, because I re-listen when I edit, so I'm getting to really absorb it more.
Yeah, that's the fun part. I know, it's that second listening, and it's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that, you know, I gotta write this down. And I've learned so much from my guests, you know, and just, like you say, all those little morsels, you know, and if only one thing comes out of a conversation, then it was worth it, right?
Definitely.
Right. Wow. Margaret, it's been a pleasure having you here.
Yeah.
And we'll have to get you back on the show.
Definitely.
And we'll have to talk a little bit more about this virtual reality thing and see if we can't get your business up and running again, right?
Maybe. Yeah.
Hey.
I'm never opposed to trying new things.
You know, and, you know, I'm glad you said that, because that is so true. In everything that we do, right, is trying something new. Just because it's different and unfamiliar doesn't mean it couldn't make things easier or better. That's about being this better you, right?
Yeah,
you know, so don't discredit it until you've actually checked it out, you know?
Exactly. I mean, currently my family's laughing, so I've just started working at this winery within the last month. I met the owners this past winter, and then they needed another person in the tasting room and sent me an email. And I told my parents I got this job, and they're like, you don't drink wine.
Oh, maybe I could.
Yeah, and it's just more, I'm not, like, my friends aren't really, like, we don't really go out and do social, like, we don't socially drink. We go for, like, hikes and things, so it's just not always my
Right.
crowd. And I'm, again, usually training, so I'm not drinking a ton. But they're like, you don't drink. How are you going to be able to tell people, like, or help direct them towards the wines that are best for them? And I'm like, I'll figure it out.
Right.
And honestly, you pick it up as you're there, like, learning what's on the sheet or something
Right.
like that, or listening to the other people working in the tasting room, you're picking it up. Or if I get really, really stumped, the winemaker's in the cellar right behind me, so I just go back and yell to him, and he comes up and answers anything that
Yeah, that's, yeah.
tricky.
Yeah, you know, and it's fun, and the person who's coming in to taste the wine, they're there because they like wine. And
Correct.
you can learn so much from them, you know, just asking certain questions, you know, and let them answer and train you. It's amazing.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
Margaret, if there's one thing you could leave the audience with, what would that be?
Always come into something with an open mind.
Oh, wow, that's perfect. That's so perfect. So you guys heard it right here. Never go into anything without an open mind. How powerful is that? Margaret, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure interviewing you, and the information you shared was awesome. So now it's time to say, go out there, be that best you that you can be, because Margaret and I are going to be the best we that we can be. We'll see you all on the next show.